That's when you fall.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Last week we stopped on, we did the first three from the tools for the student of knowledge. So we spoke about what is a talib and what is a student of knowledge, number one. And is it restricted to what we know, or what's the common assumption of who's been referred to as a student of knowledge? Meaning, the people who are obliged to learn, the people who it is obligatory to learn, or the people who take on the path of learning. Is that restricted to people who only go overseas to study like we know? Only if they go to wherever they go and enroll in a school and study? Or is it more general than that? And we spoke about the two types of knowledge, and that the obligation of learning is not just on a specific group of people, but every Muslim has an obligation to some extent to learn. As the Prophet ﷺ said, "Talab al-ilm ala kulli Muslim." That seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim. As it says in the Hadith, on every Muslim. What knowledge is that? That's what we spoke about last week. The knowledge that is what? Obligatory. Huh? Obligatory on everybody. Tell you, what's the name of that? Fard al-Ain. Fard al-Ain is an individual obligation. Every Muslim has to know those things. And in that case, every Muslim has to seek knowledge at least in that area. In that area, in those areas where they can practice Islam on a daily basis as a Muslim. Meaning, the Tawheed of Allah, number one, Aqidah, Iman in Allah, belief in Allah, what affects Iman. And when we go into Ibadat, everything from wudu, salat, istinja. Istinja is important. Cleaning ourselves after the salat is important, and that comes in the chapter of tahara, the chapter of purification. All of those things that we need to live as Muslims every day, they fall under the category of fard al-ain, fard al-ain. So after we went through that, therefore, if that's the case, then there leaves no Muslim except that at some extent, to some capacity, that they have some knowledge they have to seek. That they become a talib. Every person becomes a talib at some point. What is a talib? A student. Like, what else? We didn't say student last week. A seeker. Yeah, one who seeks something. Seeking, the one who's looking for something, is seeking something. Right? Or it could be a request. You go to a fast food restaurant, right? It comes from the same word, talab. What's the order? What's your order? What are you asking for? Right? So, in that case, then every Muslim at some capacity is a talib. Because there's some things none of us are excused from knowing. So, this category of the book, again, is only the things that every person who is seeking to learn, is going to need along the path, along the road. And the first three, the first one was a dua, making dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala. The second one was al-ikhlas, salam al-talakat. And the third one was ijtinab al-ma'asi, staying away from sins. Staying away from sins. So we'll start today with al-amr al-rabi'. Al-amr al-rabi'. The fourth tool, we'll say, the fourth tool. And this one is important. Qira'at sir al-ulama. Qira'at sir al-ulama. Reading the lives and the biographies of the ulama, the scholars of the past. Reading the lives of the Salaf. Reading the biographies of the scholars of the past. He said that this is something that is very beneficial. This is something that is very beneficial And there are different books, and there are many different books. There's many. It's not one book that you have to read, but, or that he's saying read, but there are many different books. And he says, read the books of Tarajum, لحفاظ العلم والعلماء الحديث وغيرهم ترى فيها عجبا. When you read the biographies of the ulama hadith and the salaf and the other imams, you'll find stuff that is amazing, unbelievable. And they're not like they were superhuman. They're not superhuman, but you'll find that their drive to learn was some things are not even believable. And that's why it says, وَلَوْلَا الْأَسَانِيدِ وَتَوَاتَرَ الْأَخْبَارِ لَكُذِّبَتْ بَعْضَ الْوَقَائِعِ. If it wasn't for the chain of narration, the isnad, the sanad, do we all know what the chain means? Huh? Well, that's the wrong question. Who doesn't know what the chain of narration is? Huh? Everybody clear? He says something, he heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, right? The sanad, the chain, which that in itself is a science. Ilm al-Rijal, that in itself by itself. Who is he? And is he worthy of taking his statement? Is he the person? Is he a person that's trustworthy? Does he meet all the conditions that are required to take a statement from him? Maybe he is, but what about the next person? Does he fit all the conditions? Likewise, all the way to the end. He said if it wasn't for the chain of narrations, that many of the stories that we read in the Bible, people wouldn't even believe them. They're unbelievable. Some of the stuff is not even, how does a person do that? How does a man fast for 20 years, a married man? How does a married man fast for 20 years, right, every other day, and his wife doesn't know? Right? That they went to, not extremes, but they were serious about guarding their ikhlas, their sincerity, making sure that they were sincere in things they do, and many other things like that. How does Imam Ahmad rahimahullah pray 300 rak'ah in a day, throughout the day and the night? Right? Stories like this, but Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, who narrated that? Does anybody know who told us that? His son. His son who was watching his father, Abdullah, which is also from the narrators of hadith. His son said, I saw my father. That's what he saw. My father would do this. And then when he got sick, he was only able to pray 150 throughout the day and the night. So he says, if you read these stories, that if it wasn't for the chain, and the people in the chain being trustworthy, and the people being checked at who they are, that the stories would be unbelievable. Tayyib, due to their diligence. But it's not something that probably most of us have ever seen, more than likely. That we don't really see that level of diligence in front of us, right? If you ever have a chance to be around students of knowledge, to ladder in their element, right? In the element of the learning, you might see something, not on that level, but maybe it might spark something that say, wow, that reminds me of the statement of such and such. That people sit for hours. People sit for hours memorizing. People sit for hours reading. Again, days, years, right? You go to some of the classes at the Haram in Mecca. You go sit with the sheikh, you see people old enough to be your grandfather sitting in front of the sheikh, still sitting in duros. Right? Old, I'm talking about old men, old. Like wrinkled old, right? And when you see that this man, he gotta be at least 70, right? And you what? In your youthful ages. And he's in the front row. And you 12 rows back. Which means what? He got there early. Priority. Right? It makes you look at yourself and say, okay, I need to fix this and I need to fix that and I need to go a little harder here and there. So he says if you read these, it shows how serious they were وَقُوَّةِ عَزِيمَتِهِمْ, and their diligence, how serious they were in what they were doing. From the major books, and there's a lot of books, from those books is Tadhkiratul Hufaz, and these are books that are volumes, so I don't believe they're translated, but the idea is the same. The idea is the same. There's plenty of books of biographies translated now. So that we don't use the excuse that, okay, the books in Arabic, so, I can't benefit. No, there's plenty of books translated, the lives of plenty of the Imams. But Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, he has two famous books. One of them is Tadhkiratul Hufaz, is one book, and the other one is Sir A'lam al-Nubala. Both of them are volumes. Sir A'lam al-Nubala is longer. It's longer in length, meaning more volumes, maybe 30 volumes, depending on the print. Tadhkiratul Hufaz is maybe 6 volumes or so, depending on the print. Both of them are by Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, who also wrote the book Al-Kabair, the major sins, Imam al-Dhahabi. And he says also, you have the Tabaqat, the Tarajum al-Madhahib, the different books that are specific to each madhab, from Imam Abu Hanifa to Imam Malik and Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah. For each madhab, they have what is called Tabaqat, which list and the lives of the scholars from that madhab specifically. Just from that madhab specifically, in order, or what have you, that are also considered from the books of Tarajum, the biographies. And if you read those books, you find in it a lot. It's a lot of benefit. It's a lot of benefit. And one major benefit you'll find is that even though they were imams, worshippers, that they weren't perfect. They weren't perfect. That you'll find also some of the imams, and this is something that we should take, some of the imams of the Salaf, major, that everybody knows, well known throughout the Muslim world. They were accused of different things, issues in Aqidah, different issues that they may have said that they followed, whatever the case may be, that they were, as we say, somebody took a stab at them, or they weren't free from any type of criticism. They had some criticism on them, but it didn't destroy them. It didn't remove them from the path that they were on. Even with that, they still are who they are, and they still kept moving the way they moved. You have a question?
I was going to say another book is in English. It talks about a lot of knowledge.
Mountains of Knowledge. That's the old head. It's a lot of them. So it's really, you just got to take one and just, inshallah ta'ala, stick to it, go through it. He says so. Either way, it's yambaghi for the person that's trying to learn. He says, and يجعل الطالب العلم لنفسه نصيبا من قراءة بعض الكتب التراجم. That you gotta take something from the biographies and read through them. And when you're reading, it's not like this is some fairy tale. Now, these are real men. They were real. They lived amongst a community of people the same way we do. And you'll see when you read their biographies, like they said about some of the imams, that he was the most knowledgeable during his time. Right? The most knowledgeable person in the country, in that land. That's what they knew him for. And when we read stuff like that, we should think about, as they say, what do people know us for? The legacy that people say. What do people know you for? What if I died today or tomorrow? What would I be known for? And if it's something that's not pleasing to Allah, then we need to try to change that. We need to try to change whatever we're leaving behind with actions and with the obedience to Allah Jalla wa'ala. Tayyib. He says after that, and if y'all can do it, if you don't, because I got a lot of benefit. We used to read on the way to work about an hour or so, back and forth. An hour going, an hour back. Read from Sir A'lam al-Nubala. At the least, when you go in the house, sometimes it's shock. Sometimes it's shock. I got to do something today. I can't stay like this. You read their lives, you say, I can't stay the way I am. Another day, I got to do something today. I have to do something today that I wasn't doing yesterday. They did all of that, and didn't have half of the transportation, half of the ease of running water, half of the ease that we have, they didn't have that. And when you see what they went through to get what they were trying to get, it's a shame. You feel it in yourself. I'm out of pocket. I'm out of pocket. Right? But you only get to that by reading through what they went through. طيب. He says the fifth one, الأمر الخامس قراءة بعض الكتب الأدب الطالب. Reading some of the books of manners for the student. There are books and books and books written on how is the person trying to learn supposed to behave. Behavior. Part of our problem in this city, Philly, we think, for some strange reason, Allahu A'lam where it comes from, we think we can say one thing and behave in another way, and as if behavior has no, like it's not even the issue in Islam. But earlier man wrote books and books and books on adab. Like Abdullah ibn Mubarak said, rahimahullah, he said, we learned adab for 20 years. Manners, etiquette, for 20 years before learning anything else, before really going into hadith and fiqh, and we learned adab. So those books, and there's a lot of them, it's not one specific, but he's saying, reading some of those books in order to see, as he says, so that the student can know والمبتدئ في طالب العلم كيف يتأدب بآداب طالب العلم في حضوره لمجلس العلم. Because the books of adab, they discuss a lot of different aspects. And all of us, this is not just for people who went to Mecca or Medina to study, we all need to know certain aspects of the deen. There's no getting around that. There's no excuse. None of us are excused from understanding and learning about or seeking the knowledge about the Tawheed of Allah Jalla wa'ala. Nobody's excused from that. Nobody gets a pass of understanding what is shirk so that I can stay away from shirk. Right? So if the class, for example, I go to a class on Tawheed, Aqidah, how do I behave in class? What am I, like, is it like when we go to school? Or is it something else? Or, right? So those books discuss how to sit, how to ask a question. And of course, from the beginning, ikhlas, being sincere, right? How to sit in class. It talks about how to sit in class, right? It's this book I'm talking about, like one book, not a book like this. It's like, nice sized books, and there's numerous books. Publisher.
I wanted to ask, what you were talking about as far as how, I don't want to say in the city, but how a person may think that the actions are not connected to the belief. Okay. So the person say that they don't believe that, because we know that's a deviant belief, to believe that the actions are separated from the belief, but their actions display that they do believe that, or it's at least apparent in their actions that they indicate. You understand what I'm trying to say?
If a person does, Allahu A'lam what's in a person's heart. A person says that Iman, belief in Allah, is a statement of the tongue, belief in the heart, and actions of the limbs. But you'll hear statements, you'll hear people say stuff that indicate that maybe actions don't affect my Iman. Alright? People say stuff that indicate that actions don't affect what I believe, my Iman, and my Iman increasing and decreasing. So, at the end of the day, the reality is in what it is. We can put a label on anything, right? It doesn't make that thing what it is. There's people that call themselves Muslims, right? And we know that they're not Muslims, right? But they call themselves Muslims, right? So if you put a label on something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is what the label says, right? The important thing is to make sure that we're not falling short because that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Iman and the Tawheed and actions being connected to Iman is a serious, serious issue. And that's one of the original groups, not original like, in Philly, not the original groups walking around here, whatever we're talking about here. One of the original groups historically in Islam, thousands of years ago. One of the original groups of innovation were the Murji'ah. And the Murji'ah is a group, they had a problem. Their issue was in Iman and actions being connected to Iman. And Iman increasing and decreasing. That's from one of the original groups of innovation. That's a real issue. So it's not something light. So if a person says, as I've heard brothers say, right? Somebody advises them and they say, well, I'm on the Sunnah. What is that? What does you being on the Sunnah have to do with the disobedience you just did? You being on the Sunnah allows you to be disobedient to Allah? He didn't explain it, but what's the pattern? Because what the Murji'ah did, that group, what they did was they belittled sins. It's not a big deal. Why? Why do they belittle sins? Because they don't believe, and they're on their different levels in themselves. Some of them are ulama don't even consider Muslim, but the least of them, the closest to Ahl Sunnah, that they say that Iman doesn't affect, sins don't affect Iman. So therefore, if sins don't affect your belief, then you can do anything and your belief stays the same. So it doesn't matter if you're disobedient or not to Allah. It doesn't make a difference. Why? Because either way, your Iman stays the same. Right? So when they did that, as the ulama explained, that they opened up the door, that belief opened up the door for what? The floodgates for people sinning. Why? Because it don't matter to them if I disobey Allah or I don't disobey Allah. My Iman stays the same either way. And with that attitude, it makes it what? Easier to sin. It makes it easier to sin than the person who understands that what? Disobedience is going to cause my Iman to decrease. So I need to stay away from as much ma'asiyah, as much disobedience to Allah to keep my Iman strong. So in those books he also says, وَفِي حُضُورِهِ عِنْدَ مَشَيْخِ الْعِلْمِ, how to behave when a person is sitting with their sheikh. It gets real detailed. It's very, very detailed. The books are very detailed. It says, وَمَا أَقْرَانِهِ, and how do other students deal with each other? How do students deal with other students? Right? We got an issue now. Students criticizing each other. Students who study together, right? They turn around and then do what? Criticize each other. Come on. If you go back and look at the books of criticism, that's science, which is a science, a jarh wa ta'dil. A jarh wa ta'dil is a science. It's not something every person walking around the street should be even, it's not even on the tongues. You don't even hear people in Mecca, regular people coming to the Mecca, you ain't even talking about no jarh wa ta'dil. That's here. Regular Muslim, talking about jarh wa ta'dil. A regular Muslim. Don't know, you won't say that, but just minding his or her business. Right? Criticizing and praising people. An issue in criticizing and praising in the books of jarh wa ta'dil is if y'all are colleagues, that it could be jealousy that causes that. So a lot of times that criticism is not even accepted. Right? Because that's real. Maybe we come together and then you take off. Right? Somebody could be jealous and then they turn around and criticize the person, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. That's an issue that comes in those books. So, in those books of adab, etiquette, manners of the student, it discusses how is the student with another student. Right now, people in class together. Everybody doesn't ever understand on the same level. Some people have previous knowledge, therefore, they may know a little more. Some people have less knowledge, so it fluctuates. So what happens? How does the person interact with the other people in the classroom? Those books discuss that. He says after that, وَكَيْفَ يُعَلِّمْ مَنْ يَجْهَلْ. How do you teach a person who doesn't know? Right? We say ignorant. Ignorant meaning they don't know, not ignorant meaning bad manners and behavior. Ignorant meaning they don't know. So if a person doesn't know, how do you teach them? Right? And that takes knowledge, and it takes hikmah, wisdom, and what else? You got to be a thinker. You have to think. What's the best thing to do in this situation? You have to have critical thinking skills, right? You got to be able to think, gauge the situation in front of you. That might not be the best thing here. And you might say, we don't do that. Some people, give them the hot, I don't care what he said. Right? Giving them the hot. Right? Giving them the hot. Right? Like a brother told me, I said, actually, you got to use hikmah. Yeah, that might be the truth, but you got to use wisdom when you're doing it. You can't be haphazard and reckless. Brother told me, man, you're a hop, whoever it may be, however it's going to go. The hop has to be, scare people away, people fighting. You giving a hop, people ready to rumble. Right? So what's more, right? You giving a hop, but that has to be done with wisdom, hikmah. All of those things come in the book on how they deal with his own family members and all of those things. He said, if a person reads these books, you find a lot of benefit in these books. And from one of those famous books is Al-Jami' al-Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adab al-Sami', a book by Khatib al-Baghdadi, a famous book by Khatib al-Baghdadi, and a book by Ibn Jama'ah, Tadhkirat al-Sami'. And there are other books that are usually titled Etiquette of the Student of Knowledge, or Manners of the Student of Knowledge, or something like that. Which again, that's not restricted to men or women that go overseas. We got to remove that stigma, I call it, that you got to go overseas to be a student. Most of the strongest people in my classes were people who studied in their country before they came. They studied, they learned Quran in their country, and then they came to Mecca. They learned Quran in Indonesia, in Africa, right? Wherever they came from China, the brother from China, Hafidahullah, the Hafid, Omar Jan, his name was, Omar Jan. He learned the Quran in China under all of those restrictions that they had on him. Right? Because Arabic wasn't the strongest, but when it came to Quran class, right? Easy. And he had a bunch of, and this was back then, he had a bunch of obstacles in front of him when he was in China. And I might have told this story before, but it's worth mentioning again. You heard it? Oh, good. It's worth mentioning again because it put me in my place that Omar Jan would come to class and he would wear like, this when I first got there, y'all. So I was still a little rough around the edges. He would come to class, and we talking about we in Mecca, we 5 minutes, 6 minutes from the Kaaba, right? All the Muslims you want in the world, turbans, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, we doing it. He would come to class with just regular pants and a shirt on, no kufi or nothing, right? He used to burn me up. Why don't put a kufi on? Like, just put something in. Just, you know what I'm saying? Do something. You can do whatever you want. You do whatever you want. But when it came to Quran class, he had the best Quran in class, hands that everybody knew. I was like, man, how did he, based on what? This is how we understand. This is my understanding coming from Philly. As soon as I got there, if you look a certain way, you must know something. That's how ignorant. We produce that kind of ignorance. We don't learn the fundamentals, so we think because a person look like something that he knows something or she knows something. They don't know they right from their left for real. But we assume because they look how we think they're supposed to look that they know something. So he didn't look the way I thought he was supposed to look. So I assumed he didn't know anything. Right? But he was half of Quran. I found that out. So I asked him, one time I had to ask him, because he kept everything on the Quran test. The teacher was like, one time, you don't got to read, it's cool. You ain't got to read for the final. Final test, you don't have to read. I'm like, so I asked him one time about China, what's going on in China. And he told me, I said, how? He said, how? I said, what's going on in China? What's going on with the Dawah? He said, it's real difficult. He said, it's real difficult. This had to be at least 10 years ago, he told me this. At least 10 years ago. He said, it's real difficult. He said, they got security guards on the front door. They won't let you in the masjid if you're not 16. You can't even come in if you don't show ID showing that you're 16. But the thing was, he said, they only allow us one mushaf per household. We only allow one mushaf in the house. Right? He said, you can't grow a beard if you grow, because he ain't have a beard either. Right? So I'm like, this boy be cutting his beard, like, what is he doing? So if you grow a beard, Muslim grow a beard, 3 years in jail. As they say, mafi kalam, nothing to talk about. We're not going back and forth. 3 years in jail. He said, if you do this, give durus in the masjid, like this, dawah in the masjid, muhadarat, 5 years, nothing to talk about. 5 years, no rap. As we say, no rap, nothing to talk about. So now my question was, how you memorize the Quran with all that? Like, how did you memorize the Quran? You memorize the Quran in China? Yeah, in China. Under all of those conditions, you memorize the Quran? How you do that? He said, well, a friend of mine graduated from Jamia Islamiyya in Medina. Right? So what I did was, one mushaf per household. Can't grow a beard, can't get plants in the masjid. Security guards on the door, gotta show ID. Right? My friend graduated from Medina, he's a hafiz, so what I did was, I snuck over to his house at night to memorize from him. For 2 years. Went over to his house every night for 2 years to memorize from him until I finished. Huh? Talking about a crumb, felt like a crumb. I'm looking at him like, with these people, we got a mushaf in our pocket, in the car. Your wife got one that she don't want nobody to touch. You got one that the kids can't touch. Right? All the kids got their own, right? How many hufaz, how many hafiz Quran do we have? From us. You with me? It's for all of us. I've been in Philly all my life, except when I left. There's no excuse. There's people right here in America doing it, producing hufaz. But they put Quran, it has some, it has its priority in their lives. We have other things that are priority. Moving on, those books discuss those things, and it's a bunch of other books, and usually they are titled The Manners of the Student of Knowledge, so we shouldn't look over those books. We shouldn't look over those books and graze over them and think that, oh, that's not me. No, that is us when it comes to Fard Ain. Knowledge that is obligatory on all of us, that's us. None of us are excused from that. Abu Saajid, the sixth thing, and this is important, مجالسة المتميز في حفظه وفي فهمه وفي قراءته. Sitting with the people, talk to them. Sitting with the people, sitting with a person, or finding somebody who you see to be stronger than you. Somebody who you see to be stronger than you when it comes to memorizing what they understand. Somebody who you see to be stronger. Somebody you can benefit from. Right? He says you should sit with the person, تَرَى حِرْصَهُ عَلَى طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ. Somebody that you see to be serious about learning. That you take them and you try to be closer to them. Everybody with me? Part of our problem? I don't need no new friends. If I don't know you, then, I ain't really trying to meet no new people right now. Right? I mean, if I'm tripping, let me know. Right? I'm talking about Philly. I don't know about nowhere else. Our attitude, our mentality, if I don't know you, I can't really bang with you like that until somebody else give me the green light on. It don't matter if we pray together. It doesn't matter if I see you in classes and I see you in all the places of goodness. Until somebody give you a stamp, it's salams and that's it. Right? Which is a problem. So it's not Islamic. It ain't Islamic. It's not Islamic. But that's the reality for some of us. That's the reality for some of us. Which therefore it hinders us from benefiting from one another. To be a brother you've been seeing for years, you never knew he read Arabic. You never knew she read Arabic. You've been seeing her for the past 10 years and never knew that she had 10 juz of Quran memorized. Right? It happens. You know you read Arabic? You read Arabic? Yeah. You've been in class for 6 years, you've been going to Quran class. But we keep it so surface, we keep everything, right? That we don't get to know each other, therefore we don't get to benefit from one another. This is here, especially when you're trying to learn, you gotta get with somebody who you see to be stronger. That you think they're stronger than you. You see them to be diligent. Now what if you get with them and they're not really that? Huh? You do what? I mean, you might could benefit something from them, but you don't want to make the person, you don't want to make that your, as we say, your roadie. You don't want to make that person who might not be what you thought they were. They might be weaker than you actually. Now they need to be benefiting from you. And you need to be looking for somebody stronger. It don't mean that y'all still can't have a relationship, but to get somebody stronger than you, that's going to push you. And there's plenty of people like that. As he says, لِأَنَّ أَصْحَابِكَ لَيْسُوا سِوَاءً. Because the people that you keep around you, as everybody knows, they're not all on the same level. We don't have to say it. The people that you deal with on a constant basis, you know, all right, his dean's stronger than this one. She's a little stronger than this one. She's not really there yet. He's still coming around. And you don't have to say it. It's known. It's understood in the circle of people. So therefore, by understanding is different. Everybody's diligence to learn, everybody's push to learn is different. So you got to know that about the people that you're with. Why? Because if they're weaker than you, either you're going to affect them or they're going to affect you. If they're not really trying to learn and you around them all the time, right? Either they're going to start coming to class with you or you're going to stop coming to class. Somebody's going to be affected. The Prophet ﷺ said it, especially when you got somebody you with. As we got people, we have people every day. We with them every day. We talk every day. At least we talk every day, right? The person is on the deen of their companion, right? Tayyib. If he's not really there to learn and he's still a little bit, and you with him every day, either A, he's going to come to the masjid because that's what you're trying to do, or B, he's going to pull you or she's going to pull you away from the masjid. That's the reality. Ain't no love lost. Don't mean we don't still love each other, but that's the reality. That's just the reality. It says, so of course, the understanding is different, what they memorize is different, how much they read, everything is going to fluctuate from person to person. He says, even the guarding of their time. Some people, they don't guard their time good. Time management is not good. He says, so you want to be with people who are distinct when it comes to their worship. You see the brother or the sister? They're always praying sunnahs. Not the obligatory prayer. The obligatory prayer, y'all, is obligatory. What about after Isha? What about after Dhuhr, before Dhuhr, before Fajr? Right? The sunnah prayers. You see somebody always praying the sunnah prayers, that's a good trait. That's a good trait. Does that mean they do everything right? Don't mean they do everything right. But at the least, they have a drive to pray those sunnah prayers. At the least, you might want to find out, what is that drive? You pray all the time. I'll never see you miss a sunnah prayer. It might give you a benefit that you might not have came across before. Tayyib. He says also, and he mentions this again, تَمَيُّزًا فِي سُلُوكِهِمْ. People that are distinguished in their behavior, which is a big issue for us in this city. Our behavior, period, as a whole, shot out. Embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, especially when people from outside of Philly move here. When I first got to Mecca, I met a brother from Canada. I feel Allah, right? Brother said, where you from? Y'all, I don't know if y'all know, but Philly got a name. Dua, a lot of dua. Students of knowledge from Philly. The Dawah Salafiyya is strong in Philly. Right? Philly got a name. Brother said, where you from? I'm just, alhamdulillah. I'm from Philly. He said, whoa. Exactly what he did. He said, whoa. That's exactly what he did. Embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed the way we carry on and sweep it under the rug like it's normal. This stuff ain't normal. The stuff that we be going through in our community is not normal behavior for Muslims. It ain't normal. We may allow it to be normal because we don't say nothing. Or when people out of pocket, we just keep treating them like they just, like they just the sheikh of shuyukh. We just, the sheikh of shuyukh, we treat them like they're just the scholar of scholars, even though they're wrong. They're wrong. It don't make a difference who you are. Right is right, wrong is wrong. It doesn't make a difference. And it don't take away from a person. Nobody's perfect. When people make mistakes, Sheikh Salah al-Sheikh said, he was talking about reading the biographies. When you read the biographies, you're going to find mistakes. You're going to find that people way more knowledgeable than us, they made mistakes.
Fifth one, rebellious and disobedient. Fifth one, Surah 17:6. Fifth one, disobedient and rebellious. Fifth one, Quran. Fifth one, rebellious and disobedient. Fifth one.
He says you're going to find that people make mistakes. People way more knowledgeable than us. Way more. People that the Muslim world knows and loves. But he said, and mentioning in that the scholar is not to be followed in his mistake. It's because he's a scholar and he makes a mistake don't mean it's okay for us to follow him in a mistake. Person is knowledgeable when they make a mistake. Okay, it's a mistake. We don't follow it. Does that mean that everything else that the person did is thrown out the window? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, but that part right there, we can't do that. Why? Because that goes against the revelation. That goes against the Quran and Sunnah. So we can't follow you in that. And we have to tell you that's a mistake. It needs to be corrected. We don't got to disrespect each other. We don't got to try to play nobody and put nobody on blast. But a mistake is a mistake. It is what it is. طيب. He said after that, فَحْرِصْ عَلَى أَن تُلَازِمْ مَنْ تَشْعُرْ أَنَّكَ تَسْتَفِيدْ مِنْهُ عِلْمًا وَخُلُقًا وَزِيَادَةً فِي حِمَّتِكَ. He said, be diligent and strive hard to stay around people. He won't mention the same thing again. Who you see that you can benefit from their knowledge, from their adab, their behavior, their character, the way they carry themselves, and that you can benefit from them, that they're going to push you to want to do more. These are the people we should want to be, not the people who got the biggest name. A lot of times the people with the biggest name, if you really get to know them, it's a name. Right? There's really nothing behind that after that. The people who you can benefit from, their knowledge, their adab, their behavior, their character, and that they will push you to want to do more. Okay. طيب. He says, الأمر السابع مجاهدة النفس وعدم اليأس. Fighting against your own self. And this is for all of us because the shaitan comes to each and every one of us from a different angle. Number 7. That a lot of times we don't learn as fast as we think we should learn. So we get discouraged. Right? We don't learn something as fast as we think we should learn. He says, يعجز عن حفظ المتن. We don't memorize. I've been reading this all day and I still don't have it memorized. Right? Whatever you're trying to do. I've been reading this book, I still don't really understand it that much. And we don't do it as fast as we think we should do it, so we end up doing what? Giving up altogether. That we can't do that. That's from the shaitan. That we don't give up, and we don't, or what we do is we have to fight against ourselves. Because some of us are just lazy. Some of us are procrastinators. Some of us are busy, super busy. Some of us are not as busy as we think we are. Right? Some of us are just bad with time management. So when we fall into one of them problems, we just throw it all to the side, and then we busy ourselves with something else because we don't feel like that we're moving as fast as we think we should move. But we got to fight against. We have to fight against, as he says, fight against your own self. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَيَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, as Allah said in Surah Al-Ankabut, number 69. Those who fought in the cause of Allah, that we will guide them to our path. Those who strive to please Allah Jalla wa'ala, whether it was in fighting, jihad, or other than that. Those who fought, striving to please Allah, that Allah is going to guide them. So when we come to that fork in the road, we come to that wall that we hit, right? You know how we do. Sometimes you with a brother or you with a sister, y'all rolling, y'all reading together, right? Then when you get by yourself, you can't read more than 6 minutes, right? You got 16 minutes in you and you sleep, right? And that happens twice, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It happens for a week. It might happen for a month. But if you stop, then you just stop. But if you keep pushing, after a month, you're able to do 25 minutes. And after 2 months, you're able to do 40 minutes. And after a while, you can sit as long as you want to sit, as long as you don't have no pre-obligations. So he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, أفضل الجهاد أن يجاهد الرجل نفسه وهواه. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the best form of jihad is that a person fights against their own selves and their own desires. That fight against their own selves, and everybody has their fitna. Everybody has their own thing that they're dealing with that nobody else knows about. Right? So whatever you're dealing with, that you got to fight against that, which may not be the person sitting next to you, or may not be his problem. He don't have that problem. So he's good when it comes to time management, or she's good when it comes to being able to stay focused. Right? Me, right? I'm not good when it comes to this, so I have to work on that. This person is a procrastinator. Always putting it off, and do it tomorrow, and do it tomorrow, and do it tomorrow. Right? Next person don't have that problem. Whatever the problem is, that you can't let that problem overtake you to the point where you quit or you give up. And he mentions a story. He says, قد أخبرني بعض كبار السن أنه كان هناك رجل في الحرم المكي قدم مهاجرا وكان لسانه أعجميا. He said there was a man. There was a story that some of the elders told him, some of the older brothers told him. The Sheikh is saying, some of the older brothers related stories about a man who moved to Mecca, and he used to sit in the haram at the Kaaba and he used to read the Quran. He moved from his country and he moved to Mecca and he would sit there in the haram by the Kaaba reading the Quran. And he wasn't an Arab. So his Arabic, of course, was what? Shaky. It was choppy. He wasn't an Arab. He says, so they said, when they watched him, he says, فَكَانَ إِذَا قَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ رَفَعَ صَوْتَهُ لِيُعَالِجَ حَرَكَةَ لِسَانِهِ فِي نُطْقِ الْأَحْرُفِ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ. When the man would read, he would sit there and he would read the Quran loud, like with a raised voice, so he could hear himself making mistakes. Alright? So he could hear himself making mistakes. But you know it's a bunch of people there listening, right? Right? Of course, there's a bunch of people there listening. Right? I'm speaking as we scared for people to know we don't know something. We scared to make mistakes in front of each other. And when you're scared to make a mistake, you can't learn. Right? We scared. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read silently, just in case somebody here is listening that knows more than I know, don't hear me making a mistake. Not, let me read loud, because if I'm making a mistake and somebody's here that knows, they can correct me. Right? If I read loud and somebody's here and they know more than me, they're going to correct me. So I'll benefit. But if I'm scared to make a mistake, then guess what? I've been making a mistake, and I'm going to leave here today making that same mistake. I don't give myself an opportunity to be corrected because I don't want anybody to know what I don't know. You with me? So the man would read with a raised voice in order to hear himself make a mistake. And of course, there's other people there. And the men said, كُنَّا نَتَأَذَّى مِنْ نَبَرَاتِ صَوْتِهِ الْمُتَدَاخِلَةِ. He said, we used to be bothered by his reading. bunching the words together. His reading wasn't good, right? And he used to bother you. If you don't know, once you learn how to recite the Quran properly from a teacher, if you hear somebody read it and they're making mistakes, it's like you're cringing. It's like that, right? Once you learn it. If you don't know what you're listening for, that's for the people who know what they're listening for. If you don't know what you're listening for, you might never experience that. Once you know what you're listening for, it hurts. So he said that it used to bother them to hear the man read. Until it says, وَبَعْدَ مُدَّةٍ مُدَّةَ الزَّمَنِ أَصْبَحْنَا نَتَشَوَّقَ لِسَّمَاعِ قِرَاءَتِهِ إِذَا قَرَأَ. But after some time, they what? He fixed his problems and they wanted to hear him. Because he did what? He stuck with it. He fought against himself and he stuck with it until after some time the people wanted to hear him read. Right? And you'd be surprised how old these people be. A lot of us in here, we don't have an excuse. A lot of these people, my wife was in a class with a sister, she said it was like, I'm talking about Quran class, memorizing. Grandma, like great-grandma. Talking about veins, old, wrinkled, real fragile, like somebody got to walk her all the way to the chair. She can't sit in a regular chair, they had to put like a special cushion on it, right? Don't miss a class though. And coming to do what? Memorize the Quran. Not just read it, coming to memorize, right? I'm talking about old. Allah forgive us and increases. Tayyib. He says, so the point is that we all have to fight against our own selves, and we shouldn't be people who give up. Tayyib. He says the next one is to look to the people, look around you, and as we say, look at your colleagues, the aqran. Look at the people who are around you. And you're going to find أن هناك, that they're going to be people younger than you. Yes, number 8. People that are younger than you who know more than you. It's possible people are younger than you and they know more than you. Or he says you'll find that there's some people who don't have what you have from the dunya. Maybe their living condition is not what yours is, right? Maybe they don't have transportation. Maybe they don't have something that you do have, right? From the necessities that you need to live, right? And you do have it. You can easily go to the market, jump in your car, go to the market. Brother or sister doesn't have a car to get to the market, right? Your house might be bigger than theirs. Whatever the case may be, you have something from the dunya. You have a better job than they have. They're struggling. You have more money. Whatever the case may be. But you'll look at them and say that قَدْ حَصَّلَ أَكْثَرْ مِنْكَ عِلْمًا, but they have more knowledge than you, right? That person might have more knowledge than you. He said this should increase a person and it should push a person to want to be better in certain areas. Why? How is it that, for example, a person's got a job making $60,000 a year, $50,000 a year, right? And this is a true story. The brother had a job, nice, mashallah, good job, making maybe at the time like 45, something like that, 45,000. At the time it was a good job. It was a brother who didn't have a job. He was, as we say, he was just grinding out on the street, hustling. He was selling like clothes, he sold clothes. But everybody knew, he was known for selling t-shirts. That's what he was known for. Brother sold t-shirts, that's what he was known for. He sold t-shirts, everybody knew. He sold t-shirts, and did what? He didn't have a 9 to 5, that ease. That's ease. Knowing what your schedule is, know what time you gotta get, what time you going to work, what time you get, all that's ease. Right? Benefits, all the stuff that come with a regular job. He didn't have all of that. But he did what? He sold that, what he had, and he made Hajj before the people who had all of those jobs and all of that. They didn't even make Hajj. He made Hajj. And they all went and watched him get on the bus. True story. They went and watched them pull off on the bus. And then they all looked at each other and said, we got Hajj. Allah musta'an. Allahu Akbar. Tayyib. That, he said, that should tuziduk ila an takun mithla. Oh, ahsan minhu. It should push you to want to be like that person in those areas. Not that you want to quit your job and, no. He's doing khair, he's doing good. Right? He doesn't have the ease that I have, and he's putting forth the dedication and sacrificing to make Hajj. And I got all of this ease, know how much money I'm making every 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, and I'm not, right? It should push you to want to be like that, or better, he says. He says, the important thing, al-muhim, is that when you look at the people around you, you're going to see people who are distinguished in certain areas, and that we should benefit from those areas that the people around us are distinguished from. And that is a thing that I think, this is my opinion, now it's my opinion, I think this is something that here, us in Philly, we fight with because of the mentality we have. We don't like people in our area. We don't really deal with people we don't know. We're real territorial. Even if we say we're not. It's embedded. If I don't know you, Muslim and all that, but yo, you know this boy? Right? You gotta get on the phone and start doing homework. Even though every time I go there, he praying. Every time I go there, she's in the front row. She's always covered properly for the past 6-7 years. Right? Ever since I've known the person, they've been on khair, upright. Yeah. Am I talking crazy? If I'm talking crazy, I let you know. Huh? I know my people. We don't have to say it, but I'm gonna say it so that we know it's not Islamic. I don't want nobody to think I'm talking in the clouds, but I'm talking real. It's not Islamic. Right? It's not Islamic. You don't need the green light from somebody else to let you know this is a good Muslim brother. You know what Islam, you know what a Muslim's supposed to do, right? Is he doing or she doing what they're supposed to do? Alhamdulillah. Whatever they're doing on the cut, outside in the tub, that's their business. We're not searching to find what they're really doing, because I only see them here anyway. So when we're here, we benefit together. Yes.
It's yours.
Okay.
Give it to expand.
Okay.
Put a stick in it because this space belongs to this space.
Inshallah.
Give it to expand, go that way. You go that way, going back towards Muhammad Park.
Yes.
All that's your property.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Shukran. طيب. This is the last one, number 9, التاسع. الأمر التاسع ترتيب الأوقات. And this is important. This is important. And it's something that, again, from what I know of my people, we don't respect time. We don't respect time. And we have a problem respecting knowledge also. So Methalan, for example, if he's sitting here reading, right? Let's say, we don't know, maybe he's sitting here reading the Quran. You come in, he's the only one in here reading. Sitting by himself reading. It's possible, this is the only time the man gets to read. He got kids in the house, wife, he can't read except at this time. Right? We'll come and just sound like that's nice, but it's reading. It's like a person making dhikr after the salah. They're making dhikr. It's time of dhikr. It's only going to take, let's say brother making a long dhikr, 5 minutes. Most of us done within 1.5 to 2 minutes. Right? We don't give each other that time to make the sunnah dhikr after the salah. Instead of waiting, or even better, instead of stepping off and praying the sunnah after the salah, by the time he's done that, he or she is done making their dhikr, we cut in. When we don't know, maybe this is the only time that I have. I need every minute. Now, when you cut me and cut in my time, what do I say to you without being offensive? I mean, I need an example, y'all.
I'll talk to you outside. I never cut into your time, sir.
What'd you say?
Never cut into your time.
Oh, no. I say without being offensive. You want to say something nice. How do you get somebody, huh?
Right.
No.
The one who's making victim, what did they say?
I mean, some brothers just ignore them. I've seen that before. They making liquor. The brother come and they'll just keep making liquor, like, you know.
Or you just give them the kind sign.
You see the point? Now I gotta say something, or you have to say something that you don't really wanna. I don't wanna be rude, but for real, I really need this 15 minutes or whatever it is. This is Tartib al-Awqat. And he says, فطالب العلم ينبغي أن يكون من أخبر الناس بوقت أن يدير سدة. He said the student, the person learning, should be, and this is the words he used, the stingiest person with their time. These people that eat your time up. Talking about, for real, it's not really that important for us to have a 20-minute conversation about it. Or if it is that important, it could wait. Especially if this is your time that you need. He said the person, when you try to learn, you have to be stingy with your time. You can't entertain everybody. You can't. But we have to understand that so that when we see that from a person, that we're not offended. If I come in and you read, you're doing your thing, okay, I see you reading, I'm gonna leave. Assalamu alaikum, how you feeling? Alhamdulillah. I'll get back to you. Because I don't want to put you in a situation where you gotta tell me where you might not really want to do it. I don't really want to say nothing, so I'm gonna just take this on the chin and talk to him like, right? And now you gotta take it, right? But he said that you should be the stingiest person of the time, so that, and they should be also the most generous person when it comes to benefiting people. He said especially the people who don't have that many obligations on them, meaning the younger you are generally, the less obligations that we have, right? The older we get, the more obligations we have. And then he mentioned the statement of the Salaf, يقول بعض السلف إذا مر علي يوم لم أزد فيه علما فلا بورك لي في ذلك اليوم. That if a day goes by and I don't learn something new, there was no barakah, there was no barakah in that day, there was no blessing in that day for me. If I just go day by day and I'm not learning anything, every day I don't learn something, then my days don't have any barakah in them. They would consider those days not being blessed days. Why? Because they didn't make money? Because they didn't increase in knowledge. And if I don't increase in knowledge every day, then they would feel like the day wasn't a blessing. And then he brings a story about, and we'll stop here, Ibn Jawzi rahimahullah. And we'll stop here where he said that this is how keen they were, this is how sharp they were with their time. When people came to visit them, let's just say, for example, it's Ramadan and you trying to finish your 30th, right? Trying to finish your juice for the day. Right? So a brother comes or visits you, and generally you can't really read and talk to people at the same time, right? Like, so he knew he couldn't do that. So what he would do is, he would make sure that he was doing something that's going to help his color, his seeking knowledge while the person was there. So at that time, they didn't have these pens. They had the pen, the ink. You got to dip it in, right? Paper. So when the people would come to him to visit him, as he says, he wouldn't waste his time just talking. Because time is one. We've had a conversation, but I'm losing time. I'm losing precious time. So while they were talking, he would do things that he needed, but they didn't take much focus. So while they're talking and they're having a conversation, he would prepare the ink on his desk. Set his desk up so when they're gone, get right back to work. Right? Set the ink up, set everything up that he needs, the paper, so when the conversation is done, he can get right back to what he needs to get back to. Right? That's guarding time, not letting a minute go by, whereas though you can't sit and read somebody come to visit you. Maybe sometimes people come and they really need to talk. So you gotta, you can't just, hold on, there's a crisis, brother. Brother's in a crisis, the sister's in a crisis, you can't hold on, man, so let me get this last 2 pages in. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people need to talk. So if that's the case, in that case, You find something that you can do if possible, that you're still going to be able to benefit from when the conversation is over. We'll stop there, inshallah ta'ala, until next week. Any questions?
One question.
Fadal.
Before I came in here today, I put a stick and a pen in Maureen's document there. This is a string. I want you to confirm that the time is string to the post when it was on date to confirm that it's your property. You been here, right? You man in here?
Inshallah.
Okay. Ties the string to the property. It's your property. Is this belong to this building? And you're gonna advance and move that way.
Okay, we'll talk after the salah. Okay?
Trust no one. Trust no one.
Yeah, after the salah. Inshallah. Anybody else? That's it? وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Who's the muadhin? Stop there.
Wait. What was the verse from the Spider Sword? What's the first one?
What is one?
Yeah.
Oh, 26, I think. Oh, my bad. I thought you was asking. Yes. Can you what? Huh?
You is.
Oh, hold on, son.
هتشوف كيف الحال يا شيخ.